Hello, this is Reverend Angeli. I am back to work after my heart episode. Um, I don't recommend them. You have to laugh. I mean, the alternative's not the greatest. Um, but before I start with today's Bible reading, I want to ask you guys to pray for my friend Bishop Sharon Polk. She is in a coma in a vegetative state, and they're not sure if she's going to make it. So I asked my prayer warriors to send up some prayers for her and her family. Today's Bible reading comes from Galatians 2. Paul accepted by the apostles. 14 years later, I went up again to Jerusalem, this time with Barnabas. I took Titus along also. I went in response to a revelation and set before them the gospel that I preach among the Gentiles. But I did this privately to those who seemed to be leaders, for fear that I was running or had run my race in vain. Yet not even Titus, who was with me, was compelled to be circumcised, even though he was a Greek. This matter arose because some false brothers had infiltrated our ranks to spy on the freedom we have in Christ Jesus and to make us slaves. We did not give in to them for a moment, so that the truth of the gospel might remain with you. Because the gospel is, the witness of Jesus Christ. You can tell I'm still not quite right. But there were, brothers who felt like the Jewish tradition should also be kept, because Jesus said obey the priests and everything. But then there were others who said, no, you don't have to do that because Jesus had, the New Testament. And so there was some argument back then about whether you should be circumcised or not. Excuse me. And I think nowadays, it's just a question. And in fact, some insurances don't even pay for the procedure. They consider it a cosmetic procedure. So, bless me. Bless me, Lord. I don't need to be doing that. So, there's different schools of thought on that. As for those who seem to be important, whatever they were makes no difference to me. God does not judge by external appearance. Those men added nothing to my message. On the contrary, they saw that I had been entrusted with the task of preaching the gospel to the Gentiles, just as Peter had been to the Jews. For God, who was at work in the ministry of Peter as an apostle to the Jews, was also at work in my ministry as an apostle to the Gentiles. James, Peter, and John, those reputed to be pillars, gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship when they recognized the grace given to me. So the true apostles, the disciples, some of the original disciples of Christ, welcomed him and brought him in. It was these other kind of fringy, disciples who were like, let's do this. And anytime you have any type of religious, change or anything, there's still, a lot of old traditions that kind of get drug into the, new religious celebrations. So that's, something that they had to deal with back then. They agreed that we should go to the Gentiles, and they to the Jews. All they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I was eager to do, because that's one of the things, Jesus said. And this is a problem I have with some people who talk about what good Christians they are, because they don't believe in abortion. Okay, that's one thing. That's one thing you got going. What about the poor, like Paul just said? Helping the poor. and Jesus said there will be people who, when they get to heaven, will be like, Lord, Lord, and be like, get away from me, I don't know you. When I was hungry, you didn't feed me. When I was naked, you didn't clothe me. And he talks about taking care of the fatherless and the widows. So if you got one thing going for you, but you're not doing all these other things Jesus said to do, well, just saying. So keep that in mind. There's going to be people this Christmas season who are, out ringing that bell and things, and, they can do some good with that little pocket change that you might have jingling around. So that's all for now. Until next time.